Okay. Well, then we will go ahead and get started for today. And just want to welcome everybody that, well, I suppose it's simply Angel so far that was not here last week, but now is here for the foreseeable future. And were you able to watch the audio call from last week, Angel?
Um, I only saw half of it, but I couldn't finish it because I was busy.
Okay.
Like, but yo, Thaddeus, I know this is off topic, but Elon Musk had another kid with one of his executives at his own company. This dude is smashing his own chicks. This shit is crazy.
Yeah.
Elon, Elon needs help, man.
Yeah. I have a feeling that Elon, Trump, and Zelensky, all that kind of stuff will come up over the next day or two in these calls because Seneca does talk about what people like Elon Musk and all the other politicians and people that lust for power and what they're like. I'm not necessarily saying that Elon is lusting for power, but I mean, he's lusting for something. Yeah, Angel.
He lusted for pussy.
Yeah, that's true. Philip.
Yeah, well, Seneca points it out. I think it's chapter 2, paragraph 3. Vices assail us and surround us on all sides.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. So, who was able to finish the reading then for this week? Was there anybody that wasn't able to? Okay, cool. Um, so then, what I'm going to do as far as the format for this class, in the past, we've been able to read through the text and then meditate on the text and see any kind of conversations that spark to mind. What I think that I'm going to do for this whole class series is going to be a little bit something different for the formatting. What I've done for this week's Legends of Stoicism Week 2 task sheet is I've collected a series of questions that include specific verses that maybe stood out to me or that I thought would stand out to other people, and then questions that would go along with those verses to incite a specific kind of conversation that hopefully does not dilute the text itself, because I understand that there's a lot to go through in this text. But we'll be getting to that here in just a second. I'm going to be doing this for this week and next week at least to see how this kind of plays out and factors in, and then we'll switch things up as needed to get the most out of these readings and out of the text itself. But I want to give you guys a little bit of background about Seneca in case you guys haven't read this part. Is that he was born in 4 BC in Spain, and he died in 65 AD in Rome, Italy. And his father was actually a Roman official, so he lived pretty comfortably for most of his life. And even though he was fairly ill throughout his life, he was able to be one of the main legends of Stoicism that really brought out Stoicism into the world and was able to really put the philosophy of Stoicism out there. In 65 AD, Seneca was charged with complicity in the conspiracy to murder Nero, and was ordered to kill himself. Seneca had learned from the teachings of the Greek philosopher Epicurus that one should not fear death, and so his death did not come easily. He had slit in his arteries and his arms, and he was on a very frugal diet and had a very fragile frame, and he did not die even though he slit the arteries in his arms. So he decided to drink poison like the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates did, and was placed in a hot bath where then he was suffocated by steam. So this guy obviously was well acquainted with hardship and throughout most of his life, even though he was pretty comfortable, but he also did not go out very easily. Socrates went out just like the poison, as described in the reason that Socrates, which was a few centuries before, roughly speaking, give or take with the historical artifacts, but Socrates was definitely somebody that upset powerful people. And, even myself, I've been upsetting powerful people from the sounds of it and from the looks of it recently. And I must say that it's a bit frightening at first, but then it's totally worth it on the other side because you're starting to understand that you have a bigger part to play in this. And I think this is exactly what Seneca was going through in his life and how he understood his life to be. So, what exactly is on the shortness of life? Like, what exactly is this text that we were reading? Welcome, Rama. So, what exactly is this text of on the shortness of life? So, this was a moral essay to be addressed to his friend Paulinus, and he has a lot of sharp insights that remain profoundly impactful even after, obviously, it's been over 2,000 years, roughly, almost 2,000 years since he wrote this. But it has a bold dismissal of materialism and really props up the traditional ways of living and really rebukes societal conformity. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why it also resonates with everybody so strongly today. But before we get into the task questions, did anything stand out to anybody in the text that they wanted to talk about or that they had questions about while reading? Yeah, Angel?
Yeah, the on the other side, that surprised me. It says vices assail and surround us on all sides, and they don't allow us to rise again and lift our eyes to the clear discernment of truth. But they press down on them, keeping them lowered and fixed on their mere desire.
Which verse is that?
3.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That shit's deep because like it literally describes America.
Mm. Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, this is another example of how nothing has changed.
Yeah, nothing new under the sun. Yeah. Well, and especially considering what was going on in Seneca's time. Obviously, Rome was at the heights of their empire, and they had a lot of control and influence. And this was very much going against the ways of the life of Romans. But yeah, Seneca and the Stoics in general make a very poignant point to differentiate between vices and virtue, and even later down the reading here, and down in the text, I think it's in this right here somewhere here. It talks a lot about the love of virtue and how you're supposed to love virtue as a philosopher, which I found interesting because, well, philosophia is the ancient Greek word for our term for the love of wisdom. That's where we get the term philosophy from. Other thoughts or perceptions on anything that stood out to you guys? Yeah, Daniel.
Well, he talks a lot about preoccupation and specifically think, where is it? Page. Find it. The 19. Well, he asked the question: Is is it really such a pleasure to die preoccupied?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
found that line very um, interesting because at the same time, you want to be busy, but I guess on the right things. And that's another thing I had a hard time understanding is he's against busyness, I guess for the sake of busyness, but at the same time, he wants you to focus on what you're doing currently instead of worrying about the future or what you want to do in the future. Instead, like focus on today. Um, so yeah, that was one thing I had a hard time like dissecting.
Yeah. Well, he also makes a point about leisure and how you cannot have true leisure without studying philosophy, which, I mean, that goes in line with a lot of Eastern philosophies as well. How if you don't have the lower chakras in order, per se, you cannot get to the higher chakras or you cannot calibrate them correctly. And so we see a lot of similarities, just different kinds of verbiage and tonalities uh, throughout different kinds of cultures. And this was something that I'm pretty sure Philip brought up last week, was that how all these similarities really occur across different cultures. And the leisure thing is very important as well, and we'll get more into that. But where was that? Do you have the verse by chance? Daniel?
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I can't find it. I just took notes on it. But there was also another part that I wanted to mention about preoccupation. He says, "There's no pleasure in recalling something regrettable," and for me, at least, that is something that I struggle with, and I don't know if other people struggle with it. And
Mm-hmm.
being preoccupied in past dealings
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the present.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, Auntie. We'll just jump in and we've got it recording, so you'll be able to check this out later. And well, so with Daniel, then, as far as the preoccupations and such, could you give a little like maybe a detailed example, or at least more of a firm example of how this happens for you? And then, based off of the reading of Seneca, how do you think he would respond to that?
Um, well, for me, for example, I'm preoccupied when I'm in school of first getting good grades or passing grades.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, personally, I'm working on some business ideas that I want to implement for when I get out. So, I'm and if I'm not doing either of those things, um, again, he says it in there. I'm also being preoccupied with leisure time, whether I'm scrolling. A lot of the things I watch, I like to think are like they help me spiritually. Majority of the things, but at the same time, I'm always trying to keep my mind working because I don't like just quietness,
Mm-hmm.
which I do meditate, and for me personally, I don't know why, but it's uncomfortable sometimes to just sit in the quiet for long periods of time. So, um, yeah, I'm always trying to keep my mind working on something, preferably for an end goal, and I haven't even fully fleshed out that goal yet. I'm working on it, and from the reading, I mean, as you talked about the leisure, he says, preoccupied people lose this part, for they have no leisure to look back at the past.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they had it, there's no pleasure in recalling something regrettable. I mean, even in your leisure time, you're not content because you're thinking of like bad thoughts or just like feeling like shit, instead of, I guess, living that that peaceful life, that equanimity, that I forgot, it was apathos in the last call.
Pathos.
No. There was the
Oh,
apathy.
the apathy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the good kind. So, yeah.
Yeah. Apathia.
Apathia, yeah. Which is like a great state, or ataraxia.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the ataraxia is a state of tranquility, and that comes primarily from silence, being comfortable with silence as well, and focusing again on what you can change, the thoughts, actions, and then your own moral character, and then aligning your will with the rational order of the universe, or what the Stoics would call the logos. Yeah, good thoughts, and it sounds like there was a lot for you to digest for sure in this reading.
For sure.
Philip?
Yeah, I mean, what Seneca's talking about is not that you should never plan for the future or focus on things like work or school or something like that. It's just that when that preoccupation overtakes everything else, and then everything gets out of balance. That's what he's talking about. Because later in the text he talks about, let's say, musicians who are always composing, but that's all they do. They don't focus on anything else, and then their leisure becomes actually a detriment to their life, because they're not focused on some of the more mundane things in life that you need to survive.
Absolutely.
He calls it idle occupation.
Mm-hmm. Which I think a lot of people would fall under that category nowadays. They're in idle occupations. Angel?
Yeah, on page 6, you go to verse 2, it says, life is divided into 3 parts, past, present, and future. Of these, the present is brief, the future is doubtful, the past is certain. For this last is the category over which fortune no longer has control and which cannot be brought back under anyone's power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I'm seeing from this, like, it really connects, because I'm starting to see all these Christians are literally predicting, or they're pretty much saying that the mark of the beast is coming, like, that's all they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're talking about. Have you realized that? Like, there's a trend going on that everybody on YouTube is talking about the same topic. Like, what happens if the world is destroyed before the mark of the beast comes? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these people, they think that they have the power to predict the future. You know what I mean? Like, why can't we just live life day by day?
Well, he follows up with really good here. He says, preoccupied people lose this part, for they have no leisure to look back at the past. And even if they've had, there's no pleasure in recalling something regrettable. Well, so these people that are so focused on things that are not in the present moment, they're preoccupied with the abstract so much that it's the same kind of thing with the second coming. I'm sure, like, you've seen a lot of that kind of stuff too, Angel, where it's like, oh, Jesus is coming again, Jesus' second coming. It's like, yeah, but like, why do we need to talk about that so much? Like, We don't need to talk about that. We need to focus on what we can do now and live as if he'll come back anytime. I don't see how, like being preoccupied with these things that, don't really matter. It's almost like false salvation in some sense.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
These people are so slow. They're saying that the second coming. He's already here and he's been here for thousands of years. What are these people talking about? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Daniel?
So my other quote was on the second to last page, the previous one, where he asked the question, "Is it really such a pleasure to die preoccupied?" And as well as what goes afterwards. And I like that when he says their struggle against, or their desire for work lasts longer than their capacity for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this many times, where like I'm chasing these archetypes that I want to be, and overworking, and then crashing, and then being completely like disheartened, like don't want to go further, and then again regaining it, and again, but I'm doing it all for these false ideals and for these false archetypes. So, and then, it's like, why am I pushing myself so hard when, like, to be honest, like, God loves me just as I am, just as I can put out what I put out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't gotta, or like if I do it, I have to do it for the right cause.
Yeah.
Which, again, I still don't know exactly. I mean, I think I do, but it's every day is like, I'm sharpening myself, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you recognize that. And a lot of people go through this. Their desire to work lasts longer for their capacity for it. I mean, this is most people. And that's kind of a theme that you'll see in a lot of these philosophers that we're going to be studying with Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, is they're describing a lot of what people do and don't do, and the majority that behave certain ways. And it's interesting because when you read this and you read something like this, their desire to work lasts longer than their capacity for it. It's so obvious, but the obviousness of it is only made apparent when we can see what he's saying reflected back into ourselves. And I think this happens a lot with people that are just on another level spiritually. They have a strange way of helping the people that they're talking to, even if they're not really talking to that person necessarily. They have a unique way of reflecting back what's happening, because you automatically hold up a mirror to these kinds of people. But yeah, good thoughts. Okay. So now let's get into the task questions here. So as mentioned at the beginning, this is going to be more of a conversation starter for these kinds of questions. And these are also going to be things that you can write on your own time, answer on your own time. The choice is up to you. But as stated before, I've written all these questions for the purpose of things that I thought would stand out to other people, or for even just myself, what I thought would be useful to discuss. There are certain verses that we'll be going through here. Angel actually even brought up one of the verses that I wanted to discuss. Right here. The life is divided into 3 parts. That verse 10.2. But we'll get to that in just a second. As a reminder for everybody, so there are 3 different kinds of expressions of a can you wait a second? Can you guys not view this? I'm getting like multiple requesting to access document.
Yeah, I can't access it either.
task I cannot access, and the task was the shortness of life. Um,
Okay. It says that it's.
Got it.
You guys are
It's
good
working
now?
now.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So, again, these are going to be questions that you can go through on your own time. Uh, yeah, that was just must have been a technical issue then. So, as a reminder from last week, we have three different kinds of uh, ancient Greek perspectives that we want to focus on as we read through all of these different kinds of topics. Uh, the pathos, which is the passions, the logos, which is universal reason, and then the ethos, which is the character of the text. Now, as a reminder again, these are Aristotle's three modes of persuasion. So, ethos is the appeal to the credibility or the character, the pathos is the appeal to emotion, and then the logos is appealing to logic and reason. So, with that being said, then, what would you all consider to be the pathos, the ethos, or the logos of Seneca's writings here in this On the Shortness of Life? Any thoughts? Like, who is his audience? Obviously, we understand that he's writing a moral essay to his friend Paulinus, but who is his audience, and what kind of persuasive arguments is he trying to use as far as his ethos to really convince his friend that this kind of view of Stoicism is the way to go?
I think logos,
Yeah, Rama.
logos or logical reasoning. That's what I think.
Yeah. So what kind of a rational argument do you think that he's really presenting then? Like what is the logos?
I haven't read the entire document of the shortness of life, um, so I can't answer that. I think.
Okay, that's fine. How about somebody else? Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, what I think what he's like trying to rationalize here is to seek balance in life. I mean, you do have to work, you do have to focus on the day to day things, but I bet if you get so preoccupied with that that you can't stop and let's say enjoy the fruits of your labor or or stop and think about what you've done or want to do, um, then you're just kind of wasting your life because all you're doing is working to obtain material possessions or some kind of status.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Daniel.
I think he uses ethos often. I would say credibility. He refers to like other people or other situations, those that do it right and then those that don't. Um, and I guess for one, on 18I, he says, consider how many waves you've endured, and on the one side, how many storms you've weathered, private, and on the other, how many you've brought on yourself in your public career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's appealing to the career of Paulinus, and long enough that has your virtue been demonstrated through toilsome and unceasing proofs. When you talk about virtue, and he also talks about like the fools and how their lives have ended versus like what the prototype of the one that lives correctly should live. So I'd say a lot of like ethos and pathos, and as well as logos uses.
Yeah, well, I think the ethos, like as far as the credibility to character and such, you hit the nail on the head with him using real life examples. He's telling his friend Paulinus, look at these other people's lives, look at the way that they've lived, and look at how things have panned out. You know, that's appeal to credibility and characters, because his friend Paulinus was again an official of Rome, so he was trying to get his friend to see the brighter side of true studying, self-reflection, and philosophy. Because it seems like philosophia, if we were going to use the Greek term, philosophia for these Greeks and the ancient Stoics is really a tranquil self-reflection is a way to think about this. And the logos, the appealing to logic and reason, he's almost using the people to appeal to the logos of the whole argument itself. So the logos then would be more about how you can understand the proclivity that you have as a human being to participate in vices. You can understand that. However, you can also understand why it's more important to pay attention to the love of virtue. That would be the logos. Now, the ethos would definitely be what you just described, Daniel. Is he's got to appeal to the emotional side somehow. So he's using these other people that he sees, Paulinus sees as credible, to appeal to why Seneca is correct. And as far as the pathos of this whole text, I'm not quite certain that there really is an appeal to emotion. It's more about, like, he makes some pretty harsh statements. It's either on this page or this page, something along the lines of, these people will do anything they can to get their name next to a date in history, and all for that to just cast away their life force. So he's really striking a chord at their emotions. He's not trying to appeal to their emotions. He's trying to, boom, no, you're in the wrong here, and here's why. Yeah.
So my question would be, how would he be able to appeal to them in terms of pathos, for example?
Well, remember, the Stoics, they don't necessarily see the pathos as a good thing. Let's see. I know I wrote about it in here. They basically see, oh yeah, so good mentalities and feelings were what a sage would have instead of a pathos. The sage, or the sophist, has no appetites or wishes. He wants to be including kindness, generosity, warmth, and affection to his being, and that's eupathia or eupathos, and that's the more of the concentrated quality of what a sage would be. So in their view, a sage who has attained enlightenment or ataraxia, the sage is completely free of trying to appeal to people's emotions, because he understands that to appeal to people's emotions is to appeal to a fleeting thing.
Well, I thought when he says things like the poor wretches, or they realize too late, the poor wretches.
Yeah.
I thought that would be kind of appealing to emotion, because, I mean, I'm looking at this wrong, but like, he's kind of pitying them, the ones that make terrible decisions, like stay in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't necessarily think that that's like appealing to the emotions. I think he's just expressing them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can see where you're coming from for sure. Okay. So Seneca also talks about how many people find their wealth a burden and how many people are sickly pale from incessant pleasures, and how these same people are incapable of communing with themselves, that they are adamant about guarding property but wasting time. Can you recall anyone in particular that you know of in your past or present that fits this type of description? What are they like, or what kind of behaviors do they exhibit? Auntie?
Okay, so I didn't quite understand, like, what does this say that you read from the second place? Um, I didn't quite get it.
Well, so the question is, setting up the question is how Seneca talks about how many people find their wealth a burden and they're incapable of even being around themselves. And so my question is to incite some more self-reflection is, can you recall anyone in particular that you know of in the past or the present that fits this type of description? So it could be yourself, perhaps, but it could also be somebody that you know. And what kind of behaviors do they exhibit to show that they find their wealth a burden or that they are incapable of communing with themselves? For example, narcissists are very much incapable of communing with themselves. They don't know how. They just simply don't know how to do that. And so the kind of behaviors that they exhibit is this frantic reliance on other people to stimulate their life. Like we're the ones that bring the life to the party. They want to be a part of it and then take credit for being the life of the party. They just want to take your life force. So that's an example. Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. Now I get it better. But what does it mean to commune with self? With self, does it mean to communicate with oneself? Like
Mm-hmm.
somebody doesn't know how to look within.
Exactly.
Okay, yes, okay. I understand.
So the question still stands. Does anybody recall anybody particularly that they can think of that fits this type of description? Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, I've known so many people that are just so focused on the day-to-day material things, or focused on having that steady paycheck, that's all they do. They never take time to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They never spend time with their children. It's just go, go, go all the time. Or you have people, on the flip side, they're just so focused on partying and vacations and all this stuff that they ultimately destroy their lives because something happens and they've got no money to take care of the situation or something like that. So you can have two extremes on that, and again, it's all about finding balance in between the two.
Mm-hmm. Auntie?
Yes, thank you. Well, it comes to my mind. Maybe sometimes I myself I am thinking this way or behaving in this manner, like trying to fix so many things. I'm not quite sure, but sometimes I think I have these kinds of seasons that I am doing very many things, and like I am in this go mode, like kind of like doing things, and also comes to my mind my mom. She's constant. Well, I don't know exactly like how she's living, but because I live apart from my mom, but it seems like she's constantly working, and like she's very occupied with her work, and like it seems like that.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Angel.
Yeah, it reminds me of my whole family. It's crazy. Like they got land, they own all that, and then when I come through, it's like something pisses them off, and they just want to get more and more and more to try to like fit this illusion that they're above me. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
everybody is. Like if you're too authentic and too real within, the people in the outside or the external, they're gonna try to compete with you by getting more materialistic things to make it seem that they're higher than you. And that's straight up idolatry if you think about it. But they're just playing themselves in the long run. So it is what it is. I'm chilling. I'm just sitting back, putting my feet up, relaxing, while these people are literally killing themselves day by day to do nothing. Because at the end of the day, this is all gonna stay here. We're gonna die someday. So fuck it.
Yeah, Daniel.
I just want to go off Angel. I think some people, if they're not be within, they have to find external methods to feel like they're better than you. And yeah, I've seen that.
Hmm. Auntie.
Thank you. I also wanted to say that it seems like the people that have their high degrees and are going to universities. Well, not all of them, but it does seems like that they are very occupied with their like degrees and like getting this high, trying to get this high status sport and everything. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, like getting education, but some of or many of those people are like fully concentrated on the money and education, but they still they still lack the spiritual things or there is much more important things also, like not the job and the money can't save the people, like we need more than these things. But yes, it seems like the university people could fit in this category.
Yeah, for sure. Caleb.
Yeah, going off Angel's point, I was thinking about, I think it was King Solomon in Ecclesiastes. He wrote that the motivation for most people to work and to do, essentially to like do any action in life, whether to get more money or to go out there, is to impress others around them. And he kind of concluded that it was all, vanity or a chasing after the wind. And I think that's in alignment also with what Auntie says, and I think it actually might be a symptom of, I don't know if you call it like the higher class of society, but that's sort of the game that I see educated people play. So obviously, if you're trying to make your way out of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're once you sort of have your four walls and you're out of debt, you have your career going, and like usually what happens is people, they're not content there. They always need more. So it's then you need the bigger house or the bigger car, or it's not just one car. Then you need the better brand of car, and it's like this never-ending cycle that ends. And you actually see it even amongst like billionaires, and I think we saw that with I remember during the election there was a big feud between Mark Cuban, who was a Democrat, and he kept he was on a lot of podcasts. He was openly bashing Elon Musk, but you could just tell that he was like seething in envy over Elon Musk's wealth and what he's done with as an entrepreneur. So despite these two men, they both have like immense wealth. They'll never be able to spend it. Mark Cuban is like just ripping this guy to shreds on a podcast out of envy, and it's just like what a waste of life. And I think that's what this text is trying to get at, that this error in our human condition. For some reason we're all prone to this, but it's made me think of that, and how maybe someone else mentioned before how there's like nothing new under the sun of human nature.
Yeah, good thoughts. Angel.
people. The flesh is never satisfied. So if somebody sees somebody else with a brand new 2026 car, they're gonna get the 2027. But it's crazy, you know why? Because this is how the elites run the program. They know that people's flesh is never satisfied. So this is how they make money. Have you realized that? This is how they make money. This is the way how they keep more people in the rat race to get more and more and more. That's why when I be seeing people buy all these brand new cars and they be talking to me like, yeah, bro, look, I got this shit, this and that. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, yeah, keep being the rat. I'm gonna be the one that's standing in the back, cooling. You know what I'm saying? Stress free, all that. So they just playing themselves at the end of the day. Because like I said, you know, when we down on that deathbed, man, that brand new car not gonna be with us. That shit going right back to the lot. Same thing with these cribs. They're going straight back to the market. So
Yeah, well, the rat race is a good point because what happens if you win the rat race? You're still a rat. Like you're still a rat. So what good was that, Daniel?
Yeah, adding on all to those points, I talked about it in my dream I had last night. It's like winning at what cost?
Hmm.
That's just basically what I wanted to put out. Just like, at what cost are you willing to do whatever you do in this world?
Yeah, well, that kind of goes in line with this verse here is learning how to live takes a whole lifetime. And you'll be perhaps more surprised at this, how it takes a whole lifetime to learn how to die. I mean, that's the cost right there, is learning how to die.
That should be the thing they say. Like, instead of learning how to live, learning how to die. That should be like the motto.
Well, I think people, I mean, this is something that I've come across recently that I've learned about just from doing consultations is there are people that are young and neurotic, and there are people that are older and neurotic. Now, not everybody that is young is neurotic, not everybody that is old is neurotic, but the kind of neuroticism that is played in parts with each young person and old person is one's afraid of life and one's afraid of death. And so one is scurrying away from death, which is the older neurotic, whereas the younger neurotic is scurrying away from life. And so I think one of the reasons why it takes a whole lifetime to learn how to die is because, well, you learn the cost of how you invest time. And I say all the time, never think about your time as something that you're spending. This is a thought algorithm. Look at how your time is being invested. That's the way that I think about it. That's the way I encourage everybody to think, because if you always think that you're spending time, well, your subconscious mind thinks that you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to propagate that which you invest. So that's why I say investing time. But what do you think that it means then to learn how to die? I know it's an easy question, but any thoughts on that? Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, it's really just accepting that death is inevitable. Okay, and you want to live your life as best you can. Don't waste your time, and really don't worry about death because there's nothing you can do about it. And so if you're totally preoccupied with dying, well then you're not living. Okay, and if you're totally preoccupied, running away from living, well, you're already dead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you're not living. So you just have to accept it as is, and then move forward.
Yeah, well said. Auntie?
Thank you. Um, well, I think learn how to die is like, I think it's important to keep in mind that we all die at some point, and like in this life, we don't live eternal life, but um, I think the next life will be eternal, and like setting the priorities of this life right, and keeping in mind that we someday we die. And actually, I was scrolling through social media a moment ago, and there was this Bible verse. There wasn't a name on the Bible verse, but it was saying that a wise person thinks about dying. In there was the Bible verse.
Hmm. Angel?
Yeah, I'll say this like I say this to everybody, man. Live your life the way how you want to live it. Fuck everybody and their opinions. You know, at the end of the day, when we're gonna go to that casket, we're not gonna see that asshole that talks shit out of his ass for like the past 3 hours of the day. You know what I'm saying? So for anybody, you know, I'm just being real. Just live, just live for you and the Lord, and that's it. Because that's the problem too. A lot of people, they just live for other people. That's the reason why they're not happy. Just live for yourself, man, and that's it. But honestly, I think it's the reason why it's through social media. I'm just gonna be honest, because I remember when social media was like not created back then, when I was like growing up. Everybody, like, I realized everybody was thinking more independently. Now everybody just goes off of that hive mindset. It's like, come on, like we were not born to be followers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Well, I think it's also people worry about being responsible for other people too much and their emotions. I think not only living for yourself, but also simply be responsible for yourself. And that's a lot of what Seneca is saying here is like, listen, Paulinus, you've got to you've got to learn how to be responsible for yourself. You've got to learn how to take the take death by what it is and accept that it's going to happen and enjoy life to the fullest extent. And the way that you do that is by loving virtue. Rama?
Yeah, from Hindu Buddhist point of view, that death is inevitable for one who's born, because body is temporary or perishable, but the soul is eternal. And either you will be reincarnated if you still have the karma left over, or you go to kingdom of God, or reach the nirvana state or blissful state, or whatever you call as salvation. So one who has that awareness that we are going to die one day, will have more tranquility in life, and they would not be fearful of death. Actually, they will maintain their calmness. They know that it is coming, so they'll have this kind of a detachment to worldly pleasures.
I think the attachment to worldly pleasures is a good point, because that's exactly what Seneca mentions time and time again throughout this whole point, is because you could be unconscious of your own leisure, and you can be unconscious of your own deeds of what you're doing. He says, so here's not a person of leisure. You should apply a different term to him. He is sick, or rather as good as dead. The truly leisured person is the one who is also conscious of his own leisure. But a person who needs a guide to make him aware of his own bodily positions is only half alive. how can he control any of this time, of his time?
Wait, can you explain that a little more?
This?
The part about the bodily possessions is only half alive?
Bodily position. So like, basically couch potatoes. So a person who needs a guide to make him aware of his own bodily positions. Think about all of the people, for example, that go to the gym, and I've mentioned this in the past on past videos, like, you know, people at the gym that are obese, and they're asking me about what I do to like stay nutritious or work out and whatnot. It's like these people are so in angel skipping a leg. These people are so caught up in just consuming that they don't even know how to properly just be. Like, it's not even that hard to eat healthy. Like, it's really not. It's really not hard to lift weights or to run or whatever you need to do. It's really not hard to do these things. So what Seneca is saying here is basically like, imagine somebody that needs to be guided on how to orient their body to be proper. Instead of just taking leisure for leisure, they're only half alive. If they just leisure just to leisure, because a true person that is leisuring gives their time to philosophy, as he says down here. But anyways, guys, I don't know how much time we've got, like probably 2 minutes then. What I will do is I will set up the next reading assignment. Actually, let me share my screen real quick here. Can everybody see this still?
Yes.
Okay. So next week we're going to be reading Epictetus. The Enchiridion is here at the bottom. Just go ahead and start reading it. Immediately after this call, I will start to list the reading material, where we're going to go to, what chapter and whatnot, and what verses. I appreciate everybody taking the time today. I think this was a really solid, fruitful discussion. I hope you all stay blessed, and we'll talk to you next time.